All right. It is 12:01. And for the sake of everyone's time, I see your message, Stacy. You are muted and you do not have a camera, so you are good. Um, we are going to get started as it is 12:01, and it looks as if the participants are slowing and coming in. So we are going to get started. Hello and welcome. My name is Jamal Ford, and I would like to welcome you all to our virtual speaker series for 2025. Today's webinar is titled Stalking, Recognizing the Difference Between Love and Obsession. It's being provided by the PA Care Partnership, which is a statewide system of care grant in association with the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, better known as OMSAS. And with that, I will turn it over to Colleen to introduce our presenters for today.
Great. Thanks, Jamal. I'm Colleen Igo. I'm also with PA Care Partnership. I'm excited to introduce two returning speakers. We have Chelsea Falatico. She is our community or is the community outreach manager for the Victims Intervention Program. And she is also has been involved with the victim services for nearly 10 years. So she started as a case manager at a domestic violence shelter in New Jersey, and she quickly realized that this was more than just a work. This is her passion. So you will hear that and see that in her upcoming presentation. She's joined by Erica Thaxton, who is a medical advocate. She has a long history of working in both victim services and healthcare. Erica has been able to see firsthand what patients and medical providers experience when dealing with violent interpersonal crime. She has been part of the VIP since 2016 as a volunteer taking crisis calls, and now she is their medical advocate. So we're excited to have them both with us today. So take it away, ladies.
Okay.
Yes, we're excited to be back. Thank you for having us.
I'm going to pull up my screen. Give me 1 second.
While she's doing that, just as a reminder, throughout, please utilize the Q&A feature for any questions you might have. We do try to keep up on the chat, but so many things come through there. So it's always, if you have a question for sure, use the Q&A and either Chelsea or myself will make sure that we get back with you. And with that, I think we're going to start, right?
I'm ready if you are.
All right. So today we are going to be talking about stalking. So the difference between love and obsession. And as we've already said, my name's Erica. I'm the medical advocate. Chelsea is with us as well. She's our community outreach manager, and we are with VIP.
Whoa. Hold on.
That's the end.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining.
There we go. All right. So what are the things that we're going to be talking about today? We're going to go over just very briefly who we are, who our program is. We're going to really dig down into what is stalking and what does that look like, how to identify it, who are the people that are doing, who are most likely, or what type of people are doing the stalking, as well as how do you help when you know something like this is going on. It's scary. It's scary to go through all around. So a little bit about us. We are a victim service organization in Wayne and Pike County, Pennsylvania. And, if you look it up, it says that we work with people that are affected by domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. However, it is so important to know that it is so much more broad than just those three categories. Although we most certainly do work with people that are affected by those things, we really provide services for people that are affected by major life's trauma, including crime and violence. We serve everybody, men, women, children, the survivors themselves, but not just them. We also serve their friends, their family, or people with no direct relation. A lot of us that do this work, some things stick with you and touch home more than others, and sometimes you don't know why. However, you should still be able to reach out and get help for that. The big things, our services are 24 hours a day. They are confidential, and there is never, ever any cost associated to the client themselves. So our services are completely free to the client that we are helping. And we'll show you the website a little bit later, but there is a program like ours in every single county within Pennsylvania. So if you are outside of Wayne and Pike, please know that the things that we do and the services we offer is available or similar available to you where you are locally. Okay, so let's jump right in here. What is stalking? Depending on where you live, the actual definition of what stalking is can differ upon the jurisdiction. However, they all have similar elements. So stalking is a pattern of abuse directed at a specific person that would cause that person reasonable fear for their safety or suffer substantial emotional distress. The big things or the similar elements here would be a pattern, right? A pattern is not an isolated incident. It is a minimum of 2 or more incidents. The specific person is the target or the victim, the person that the stalking is directed towards. It's always directed at somebody. Or they can also utilize that person's family and friends and third parties. However, it is always directed at someone. And fear, the last element there. It's important to understand that not all stalking behaviors are quote unquote scary when they're taken out of context. Not all of the behaviors are honestly even illegal, but we'll get more into that a little bit later when we get to that part. And just so you are all aware, we will be sharing the website where you can find the programs, where you can look up your program location, because I saw there was a few questions about that in the chat. Stalking versus harassment. So what is this and how do they differ? The difference between stalking and harassment honestly relies in the pattern, the intensity, and the nature of the behavior. But understand that these two things can and quite frequently do overlap. So when we're looking at harassment, harassment can be a single incident or it can be repeated actions, similar to a pattern. It can be based on things like race, gender, sexuality, or personal animosity. And it will often include different insults, threats, intimidation, or unwanted contact. And both of these things can occur in various settings, right? So things can occur in the workplace, in school, public spaces, online, all different sorts of things. Some examples of harassment, and again, each case is different. So understand the examples we give you may be part of a broader pattern of stalking with one person, but harassment with another. So things like sending offensive text messages once or more than once, making derogatory comments or jokes, or yelling things and threats in a public place. Stalking being that pattern of repeated unwanted attention and contact that causes that fear to that specific person. That can include things like repeatedly showing up at someone's home or workplace. It involves almost an obsessive type of following or monitoring or constant communication. It's designed or perceived to intimidate, surveil, or control. And it often includes physically following somebody, that in-person contact, constant texts or calls, showing up places uninvited, tracking someone's location, sending dozens of unwanted texts, things of that nature, despite being told or asked to stop or ignored. It just keeps happening. So how common is it? What we want to know is, how common do you think it is? How many women do you think are stalked per year? Or on the flip side, how about men? So take a few seconds, and if anybody wants to throw anything in the chat, we would love to see what you feel as though as how common is it? Extremely common, more than we think, that's for sure.
1 out of 5, 1 out of 10, I see.
1 out of 3. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if we're right. Go ahead, Charles. Gonna come up. So when we're talking about stalking, we are referring to 13.5 million Americans every year. 1 in 3 women, ding, 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 good guess, and 1 in 6 men will experience stalking at some point in their lifetimes. Almost 50% of the people that are being stalked experience at least one unwanted contact per week. When we look at stalking survivors that are employed or working, 1 out of 8 will lose time from work as a result of this victimization, and more than half of them will lose 5 days of work or more. That costs survivors as a whole $137.8 billion with a B dollars over the lifespan. Not only that, but 1 in 7 survivors will actually pick up their entire lives, their families' lives even, and relocate altogether, just because it's gotten to that point and they can't take it. So when we're looking at how common it is, Chelsea's just got to get our slide. There it is.
Sorry.
How common it is, right? Let's look at specific communities, because we all know any of this stuff does occur at higher rates in certain communities. So more than 1 million people over the age of 50 are stalked every year. That's a huge problem, because older victims of stalking do not fit the ideal victim that people have in their minds. This means that when they do report, they often face a lot of ageism and biases, and they're much less likely to be believed. Among adults, those that are 18 to 24 years old will experience the highest volume of stalking. Students with the highest risk of stalking include those that are female, disabled, Native American or Alaskan Native, LGBTQ+, biracial or multiracial, if they're living off campus, or if they're just younger in age, they are at higher rates of experiencing stalking. LGBTQ+ individuals are also more likely than heterosexual and cisgender individuals to experience stalking. And while research on stalking along the lines of adolescence is limited, all of the estimates that we do have show that stalking actually occurs amongst teenagers at higher volumes than adults. And like adults, teenage girls are more often the target to be stalked, while teenage boys are more likely to the ones to be doing the stalking. So I don't know if that surprises any of you, but the first thing that comes to my mind is how much, kids live online. And that's a huge component in stalking, which we're going to get into shortly.
All right. So now we know that stalking happens. We know it's common. We know that we're not just making things up. What is it? What are the behaviors that make up a stalking case? Stalking can be broken down into 4 different categories. We have surveillance, life invasion, intimidation, and interference. And I'm going to go through each of these individually. Some of them might seem super Stalking 101, of course, we know that stalking is following somebody. Some of them are things that you don't really think of, and some of the behaviors have a really deep overlap with behaviors that you would see in a domestic violence relationship, or they kind of overlap with sexual violence too. So we're gonna go through all of them. The first one is surveillance. I think this is the one that instantly comes to mind when most people think of stalking. This is following somebody. You always think of the guy in the corner wearing the black ski mask who's just following along in the shadows. Yeah, that is stalking, and it can be so much more. So following somebody, watching them without their knowledge, whether it's watching them through a window, watching them at work, watching them online, showing up places where they're uninvited, like maybe at work, or they go to the gym at a certain time, making sure that you as the stalker are always in their path. Going through their mail or their trash, just trying to see what's going on, what are they doing, accessing their accounts without their consent, whether that is like bank accounts, bill accounts, home accounts, Facebook, Instagram, any type of personal account that the victim might have, accessing it without them knowing, seeking information from their family or their friends to know a little bit more about what's going on, planting cameras or location trackers, or monitoring their online activity. So any way that somebody can surveil their victim can go in this category. When you move into life invasion, these are the things that really make it hard for a victim to function on a daily basis, because these are ways that the victim is showing up in their life. So reoccurring unwanted contact, that can be through messaging, through emails, phone calls, or just, again, showing up unwanted. Sending or leaving gifts, that kind of gets into the realm that Erica was talking about. It's not illegal to leave flowers on somebody's porch, right? But if you're doing it as a tactic of stalking, that can be a really scary tactic. Trying to contact them through a third party, so maybe not directly interacting with them, but sending somebody to do it for you, even if it's in a non-threatening way, asking their mutual friend to go and talk to them or ask questions as a way to get information. Spreading really harmful rumors about them, publicly humiliating them, maybe sharing some pictures that were shared in private, now sharing those to the public, impersonating them, creating fake profiles under their name or logging into their profiles, calling the bank or work under their name, or invading their property. So breaking into their home, breaking into their car, going through their trash, like we said in the last one. So you can see that there's an overlap with most of these. Intimidation looks like threats in a lot of forms, threatening to harm the person, whether that's in person or online, sending those threats in person or online, threatening to hurt their family or their friends, or threatening to hurt their pets. That's a huge tactic that we see with abusers in violent relationships, is utilizing the pets as a manipulation tool. And that carries right over into the world of stalking as well. Or threatening to destroy their property, blackmailing them, threatening to share pictures or private information, symbolic violence, which might look like leaving burnt dolls or mutilated dolls in a place where they're going to see it. So I'm not being violent directly with you, but this is a sign that I can get very violent very quickly, and that's terrifying to see. Or threatening to harm themselves. Again, this is a huge tactic that we see abusers use to keep their victim controlled in a relationship, and having to wake up with the threat of, this person might die and it's going to be my fault because they've told me they're going to do it. They told me they're going to do it if I leave them, or if I don't communicate with them, or if I go to the police, that they're going to kill themselves. Waking up with that guilt on your heart and in your head is a huge, really impacts somebody's life in a negative way. So that is a really great tactic for control and intimidation. And interference. So our final one is interfering with their life in every way you can imagine. Damaging their property. Hold on, I need to move my little thing over. Damaging property or stealing from the victim, disrupting their personal or professional life. So making it really hard for them to keep a job, whether you're showing up at work, you're calling work, you're sending inappropriate emails or messages to their employers or their coworkers. This can really, really mess somebody's life up, because if you can't hold a job because of your stalker, what do? what do we do without a job? Causing a serious accident. And this kind of these two go along together, causing a serious accident and then creating a problem to solve. So if I, as a stalker, go and make sure that somebody's car is going to break down on the side of the road, or it's not going to work properly, or their wheel's not going to turn, and then I swoop in to save the day, I've created this problem that allows me to come in and be the hero. Forcibly keeping the victim from leaving, whether that's locking them in their home or damaging their car so they have nowhere to go, taking a phone away from them so they have no contact with the outside world. There's nowhere for them to go, nowhere to escape. Physically assaulting them or physically assaulting their family or friends or pets. That means carrying out those threats that they made in the intimidation section, or actually sharing the private photos, not just threatening to do it. So most of these, there is a good combination of things that people do in person and online. So technology is really tough, right? Because technology, for the most part, was created to improve our lives. And when people use it and manipulate it in a way to hurt somebody, can be really terrifying because this is something that's meant to help us, and instead it's causing more harm. So nearly half of stalking cases involve both in-person and tech-facilitated stalking. And across the board of ages, races, and genders, tech-facilitated stalking is the most common tactic used in cases. So 80% of stalking survivors report being stalked with technology, and 41% of undergraduate students have experienced tech-facilitated stalking. Man, that is a tongue twister, and I'm going to stop saying it and find a different word for it. So some of the ways that people can be stalked online include spyware. These are just apps that somebody can download on your phone or your laptop computer without you even really knowing that it's there. They can be hidden apps. They might not even have an icon that shows up. And most of them include features that allow people to monitor your text messages so they can see real time the text that you're sending out and the text that you're receiving. They allow them to record your phone calls so they can hear exactly what was said in every conversation. It shows a record of the sites that you visited. It can view your photos and it can view your location. Location tracking is another form of tech-facilitated stalking. Most people on here have probably used some type of location tracking device, whether that's Find My Phone or a Tile. I have a 3-year-old, so we just took him to Monster Jam not too long ago, like the big monster trucks. Kid loves anything with a motor. So we thought this would be really fun, and we knew that we were going to be in a really big crowd with this little tiny kid. So we got a tile, like one of those little tiny square things that we just stuck right in his pocket because God forbid we get separated. We can pull up his location on our phone and find him wherever he is. They're small, they're easily hidden, and these are things that I really, again, they were meant to keep us safe. They were meant for parents to use to track their babies or to put in your purse that when you lose your purse, you can easily find it. And this is somebody taking that and manipulating it into a tactic of control. And spoofing is another form of tech stalking. This is something I really wasn't familiar with, or at least I thought I wasn't familiar with it, because they're things that can disguise a person's name and number. They can change their number whenever they want to. They can change the name that shows up when they call or text somebody, and it can even change their voice. And I was like, wow, who does that? But then I realized that Google has an entire program for people to do just this, and it's not meant for stalking. It's meant for business purposes. So at VIP, we have housing specialists that help people rent safe homes for themselves. And they are barely ever in the office. And instead of using their own personal cell phone, mind you, we're a nonprofit, so we can't afford to buy every team member a work phone. What they do is download Google Voice, and they're able to create a phone number, a different phone number from their personal one. They can put any name they want. So if they just want it to say Chelsea and not their last name or a totally different name, they can do that. And then anytime they call a client from that number, it's not their real number. And it's so easy for somebody. You can download this for free, and then you can change your number as many times as you want. So while somebody may have blocked your number the first time, they're not necessarily blocking this number, so you still have access to them. So how do we know that spyware is on our phone. This one seems like a silly thing to think about. Like, of course, I'm going to know if something's downloaded on my phone, but that's not necessarily true. Because how many of us sit on our phone and go through all of the apps that we have every day? I know I don't. And if you have an iPhone, I don't have an Android, so I can only speak from an iPhone, but I know Erica has an Android, I think. So maybe she can speak to this a little bit better.
Yep, I'll
But-
chime in.
Oh, perfect. It's really hard to keep track of all the apps that are on your phone because I'm looking at my phone right now. I have like 3 pages worth of apps, but I only use the first page. I never scroll over to the second home screen because everything I use on a daily basis is right there. So it's really possible that somebody could have downloaded something on my phone without me knowing, and it's hidden back on page 4, a page that could not tell you the last time I scrolled through it. So some clues that something might be downloaded on your phone if stalking is a concern for somebody. I'm not talking about just everybody in this room should go through and look at their phones. If you think you're being stalked, or if somebody you know thinks they're being stalked, these are things that you can share with them to kind of help them, just help them understand the red flags. If their battery drains unusually quick, and it never used to. Now, I'm not talking an old phone that needs to be plugged in every 10 minutes. I'm talking about your phone is dying within an hour when just a few days ago it was fine. Your battery overheats when it shouldn't be. So not somebody leaving their phone in their car on an 85-degree day and then being surprised that it's hot. I'm talking about sitting in your office or at home in the air conditioning and your phone is overheating right next to you. Spikes in data usage, longer shutdown times. So maybe there's a little delay between when you're trying to close an app and when it actually closes out. If the screen lights up when it's not in use, so maybe your phone's on the other side of the room and you can see that it's lighting up, but you're not getting notifications, it's just lighting up for some reason. And the stalker just seems to know things that they shouldn't. They have information that you only shared through a text message with a friend, or they make comments about books that you're reading on your Kindle on your phone. How would they know unless they have access to your phone or your Kindle account? Just things that they really shouldn't know that they seem to have more context around. And tracking. Tracking is really tough because, like we said, some of those tracking apps or tracking devices are super cheap. You can go online and buy one on Amazon for $15 and it's going to arrive at your house the very next day. So some tips when tracking might be a concern for a stalking victim is to turn off your location tracking apps. Obviously, turn it off on your phone, but then go through every app that allows for tracking and turn it off there too. Make sure that you're managing your settings when it comes to different apps, because so many of our apps on our phone, we don't realize also track our location. So for example, Google Maps, right? I use Google Maps to get everywhere, even to places that I've been 800 times because I have, I don't know, geography, not my thing. I live and breathe by my GPS. Can't make it from point A to point B without somebody telling me where to turn right. But when I open Google Maps, as soon as I start to type something in, it will automatically come up with a list of all of the places I've recently been, because it takes that data and it stores it away. So if stalking was a concern for me and somebody is able to access my phone, they can see exactly where I've been in the past month because it's all right there, nice, neatly listed on Google Maps for me. Snapchat also has a map. I don't know how many of us here utilize Snapchat. I know I do. I Snapchat Erica more than I would like to admit, and she probably gets really annoyed about it. But one of the things that is really creepy about Snapchat to me is the maps. I have a friend who actually lives out in the Philly area, and I remember a few months ago, she messaged me with a screenshot because I had been out towards Philly, and she got a notification on Snapchat that said, "Hey, Chelsea's in the area, say hi." Because it recognized that I was moving closer to where she was. I didn't even realize that my location was on Snapchat. But that was really, really eye-opening for me. Your Fitbit, if you have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, that also tracks your location because it tracks your workouts and your routes that you've been running or walking, if that's something that you're doing. But these are things that we don't think about. If you post a story on Instagram and you go to click a sticker to put a sticker on your story, it comes up with locations. So if I'm sitting in our office and I take a picture and want to upload it to my Instagram story, it's going to give me the option to tag the Pike County Sheriff's Office, the Pike County Courthouse, Naked Bagel, which is this little deli right down the road, because I'm in walking distance of those places. Never even thought about turning off my location on Instagram. So making sure that you're really aware of what apps are on your phone and which ones track your location. And also having an understanding of who is on your family phone plan, because you can track phone locations through some family phone plans. So if it's your partner or an ex-partner who is your stalker, knowing that they have access to that plan, they will also have access to where your phone has been. So Eric and I just came up with a few examples of location tracking on our phones, right? So I have an Apple phone, Erica has an Android, like I said. So these two kids is my son and my niece. And you can see that I took this picture on Sunday at 12:44 p.m., right? So we went on a hike in Hampton. And Erica took this picture. It doesn't show up on the screen as soon as she opens the picture because she has an Android. But if she were to click this little, like these little 3 dots or swipe up on her phone, it will show her exactly where and when she took that picture. And this is what it looks like when you open up a photo when it was taken with location settings on. So you can see can you guys see my mouse? You can.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that I'm pointing to this picture over here on the left. This is a picture I took at my desk as I'm creating the slides. You can see the slides in the photo behind you. And you can tell that I took the picture on Thursday, May 22nd. And I took it right here in Milford. It's circled, like it hones in on the exact place where you took that picture. And then the same thing here is the same or the equivalent on an iPhone, right? And if you're setting, or I'm sorry, on an Android. And if you're setting, your location settings are off, this information will not show up. So it's a really quick test to show if your location is on or off, if you're really unsure of if you turned it off or if it stayed off.
Yeah, and on the Android ones, it's the same way. My location is currently turned off, so at the bottom it doesn't show it. But
Yeah, this little
when you
spot
show
here.
that, you can see all of the details. You can see everywhere that the file is stored in your memory, as well as it'll even pull out additional, like if there's repeated faces of people, or in my case, the dog, because I didn't want to share pictures of myself. You don't need, no one wants to see selfies of that. But anyway, the pictures of the dog, you can then search and it will pull up every picture of Luda just because it recognizes it. So all these things that are supposed to help us are really, honestly, really scary if they're in the wrong hands.
Yes. And I think that's a good point too. Things that are supposed to help us can be really scary in the wrong hands. I hope nobody leaves here thinking like, I have to throw out my phone. I have to like bash my computer because somebody could stalk me through it. Our goal here is to just help give you some tools that if you are ever experiencing stalking or you're working with somebody who is experiencing it, you just have some knowledge and some tools to use to help that person or yourself. So no need to go like boycott all electronics. They can be really useful. Just have an awareness of what's on your phone and what can be tracked. Okay. So in the chat, I would love to know who you think stalkers are. Like when you think of the word stalker, what image comes to mind? Who do they look like? What's their relationship to the person? Just who do you think? Ex-boyfriends I see? Anyone? Ex-partners? Looks like everyday people. Yeah, neighbors. Someone who doesn't take it, like went way too fast for me to read, but somebody who doesn't take rejection. Yes, I love that. Yeah, you guys are getting it, right?
Yeah, even someone infatuated with you, you know, so it
Mhm.
does hit on some of the, even like the stranger or anonymous type. Good answers.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of you said ex, right? Ex-partners, and that does make up a majority of stalkers. 40% are current or former partners. 42% are acquaintances, so somebody that you may have met once or twice, a friend of a friend. Only 19% are strangers. So it seems like based off of the answers in the group, I don't think most people in here were specifically surprised by that. But why might somebody be surprised to learn that a stranger is not our main stalking like profile? Anybody want to take a shot at that? And I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer. I have an idea of what the right answer is, and I'm going to talk about it, but that doesn't mean I'm always right. Don't tell my husband that, because as far as he knows, I'm always right. Yeah, the media. Yes. And that is perfect.
Yeah, they got it.
Yep. That's perfect, because that's what we're going to go into next is the media and how the media kind of warps our idea of what a stalker might look like. And I had a video to go with this, but I like to hear myself talk too much to let a video overpower that. So I'm just going to go through the types of stalkers that the stalking tropes that the media uses the most often. First is our romantic stalker, right? These are the good-looking people. It's almost always a man stalking a woman, and it's because they love her so much, right? So some of these are a little dated, like Say Anything and Twilight. But I mean, in Twilight, he literally sneaks into her room and watches her sleep. And then there's a scene where he like follows her when she goes out to dinner with her girlfriends, but then he swoops in and saves the day. So we forget that he followed her in the first place because he was there to protect her, because he loves her so much. And my favorite, The Notebook. I mean, it used to be my favorite. It still is. You can consume media and just be aware of how dangerous some of the messages might be. But in The Notebook, he literally dangles himself from a Ferris wheel and threatens to let go until she agrees to go on a date with him. So refusing to acknowledge her declines or her rejection. Somebody said that in the chat too, somebody who doesn't take rejection well. And then he sends her hundreds and thousands of letters that she doesn't always respond to, right? So these are stalking behaviors that are used for entertainment. They're still great movies. I don't know about Twilight. I wouldn't put it in the great category. But these are still movies that people love far and wide, and you can still consume them, just understanding that not all of these are healthy behaviors, and they all have a little bit of stalking characteristics in them.
Yeah, but isn't it funny, like, growing up, especially younger, like, that's truly what you think your whole life is gonna consist of, like, when you grow up and you get married and, it's just gonna be this huge romance thing. It's not, but this is largely why.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of get into that a little bit later too, of why these are entertainment like this is fun and it's entertaining, but there's also like this little dangerous side of it when we think about how it portrays relationships in general and what's healthy and what's not, and how it really like warps our sense, especially our younger kids and teenagers, warps their idea of what their relationship should look like in the future. Right? Then you get into the trope of the funny stalker, like SpongeBob. I think SpongeBob borderlines more on harassment, but always being in Squidward's space, not taking a hint, crossing boundaries all the time, being obsessed with his neighbor, and just always showing up, right? And then Miss Doubtfire. This is a classic, and you laugh at it every time. But when you explain the plot out of context, it's a man who is upset that his wife divorced him, and in order to gain access to her and his children, he dresses up as a nanny and infiltrates their life. So when you like kind of break it down out of context, it's a little interesting, right? A little bit of a red flag, maybe a big red flag. But the media doesn't necessarily show real negative consequences for the stalking behavior, and it's just played for laughs, right? And no one's harmed. And then you have the heroic stalker, right? Superhero movies that often feature an isolated hero who's like watching over the city so they can swoop in and save their loved ones and their friends. And they oftentimes will say things like, I trust you, but I don't trust the people around you, in order to justify their surveillance, which casts them in a heroic light, right? And then we have our edgy stalkers. So some of you might be familiar with this guy. This is Joe from the Netflix series You. And then this is, I forget his name. He's the guy from Maroon 5, the band. And this is in their video, their music video for the song Animals. What?
Yeah, Adam
Adam
Levine from
Levine. Thank
Maroon
you.
5.
Yes. So thrillers and horror movies might show stalking as scary, which is accurate, but it also sensationalizes it as like edgy and sexy and this forbidden nature. When in reality, stalking is a prevalent victimization that many people actually experience, and it's not edgy. It's not an escape or like an edgy romantic escape. And then people love this guy, right? But he is literally a serial killer, but we still love him. He's like the anti-hero. And in animals, this is less, I guess this is less like watching it and also kind of borders on the appropriateness of the lyrics. But in the music video, he loves her so much that he follows her, takes pictures of her, breaks into her home, and then fantasizes about like rolling around in her blood. But it's seen as an artist, a photographer loving her so much, and she's just his muse, and it's really like romanticized, but it's not romantic. If you have time after this, I really suggest watching the music video. Just like don't do it at work because HR is going to be on you so fast. It's a really like rated R music video, but it does
Someone
a good job. Go ahead.
Someone in the chat, I'm sorry, someone in the chat, I didn't even think about this before, but that song by The Police, Every Breath You Take,
Yeah,
such a good
watching
example. But
you.
when we were doing this, yeah, didn't even
Yep.
cross our minds. That is such a good example.
Yep. So it's everywhere, right? And though the media isn't causing stalking, we know this, right? However, the messages that the media sends can create this really warped landscape in which stalking is minimized, it's normalized, accepted, and it's laughed at. So when victims do come forward, we already have an idea of what stalking looks like versus what's actually happening to them. And a lot of the media on stalking is from the stalker's perspective, and it shows like these hopeless romantics with really good intentions. And that builds empathy towards the perpetrator and might lead us to make excuses for stalkers and just assumed that, just assume the best about them. When instead, we should really be focusing on the victims and how they feel about the stalking and empathizing with them. Doesn't matter what we feel about stalking, it matters how it makes the victim feel. Because remember, fear is so intertwined with stalking. So what I might find scary, Erica doesn't find scary. And when things are taken out of context, we don't recognize why that fear is prevalent. So making sure that we're talking to victims. I think we used the example before about somebody leaving flowers on your porch or on your car. Anybody else might see that and say, oh my gosh, he loves you so much. He left flowers on your car while you were at work. How cute. Meanwhile, the person who received the flowers has moved 5 different times. This is their 5th job in 5 years trying to escape their stalker, and those flowers are there. That's terrifying. But when you don't know the context or you don't take the time to learn the context of the fear, that's when we start to minimize the experience of our victims.
And it's really important to remember, like, and I know we've said this before, but as we go through these examples and stuff, it's so much about the intent that's behind it. Even with like the movies and like when I saw in the chat about like Mrs. Doubtfire, like never thinking that before and whatnot. And yes, we don't think of that before. In the movie, it was represented with the best of intentions, right? And him just wanting to be close to his children, which is different than the stalking or negative type of intent. But that's what we're pointing out here. But I mean, the intent, right? All of these things can be done and be absolutely fine. It's the intent, the nature, and how it's perceived. That's the huge factor. So while we are talking about who are the stalkers, it is so important. Obviously, we have to talk about the current or former partners because this is such a large part of this puzzle here. And it's almost half, it's almost the largest, it's just shy of being the largest, but that's a lot. And that's really surprising for a lot of people.
Hold on, before we move forward, I want to
Yeah.
address a question that I saw in the chat about I find locally it's very hard to get law enforcement to address and or charge people for stalking. And yes, that's not just an experience in your county or state. We're all in Pennsylvania, right? In your county, it is really, really hard for law enforcement to charge for stalking because how do you prove stalking? Right? It can be really difficult, especially if you live in a place like where Erica and I are from, out in like little nowhere Pennsylvania, right? There is one gym, there is one grocery store, there's about 40 different freaking churches on the same street, but everybody goes
Dollar
to the
store.
same place in general. So how can I prove that this person is stalking me when they just happen to be at the same gym? When, yeah, they're, of course they're following me to the grocery store. It's the only grocery store around. How can you prove that they are calling you if they're coming from a number that doesn't line up with their own? And it takes a lot of time, money, and resources for police to really investigate and look through somebody's phone and find, like, track down where we just have like this really warped idea of how easy it is for police to do this work because we watch an episode of Law and Order and they solve the case in 45 minutes or less. But that's not how it happens in real life. So in order for somebody to go through call records and call logs, that's not always an available option unless there's already an ongoing case for something else. So it's really, really frustrating for people to continuously come to the police, but nothing feels like it's being done about it. And I don't think that's anything to blame police about either, because their hands are tied, but it's also so frustrating for victims and victim advocates to watch happen. Okay, going back.
No, you're good. So, all right. So, in addition to this, yes, we do have the acquaintances that also was brought up in the chat, and that's a big number too. But think about it. An acquaintance could be somebody, that you don't even know has feelings for you, a coworker, a classmate, someone that you're friends with that even if you do know, but that they feel that way, but there's an understanding, you've already had that conversation. Such a large majority of them still have those feelings, and they get to that point where they're not easily controlled. But when we're talking about intimate partner stalking, this is a big thing because the largest or almost largest portion of stalking cases happen between intimate partners or ex-partners. Almost half of all of these cases occur after a breakup. But let's talk a little bit about during the relationship, right? Because so many stalking behaviors, as we've been showing, have become normalized. And on top of that, they really do mimic, honestly, healthy, loving relationship type behaviors, that they're not always recognized as stalking. And they're not always perceived to third parties as stalking, right? Like, it doesn't matter what someone else thinks because you're the one that knows it. You're the one that would feel that fear and whatnot. So when we're talking about intimate partner stalking, like, let's think about this. In any of your relationships, long-term, short-term, do you ever ask, or have you ever been asked, where are you going? Who's going to be there? I'm just checking in on you. Text me when you get there. Text me when you're on the way home. Do you share locations? Do you, use Life 360 or something? What about if they stop by your work, put a note on your car, maybe drop off flowers? Or I was just in the area, so I figured I'd bring you lunch. These can all be totally normal and loving type of behaviors, but they can also become and be stalking behaviors. It's all about the intention that's behind them. So stalking is not always an isolated act, right? And what I mean by that, because stalking is never just one single act, it has to be that pattern. I mean, stalking as a whole is not always just stalking. A lot of times, stalking is frequently a tactic that's used as part of a broader pattern of abuse and, to maintain or gain control over another person's life. This is often intertwined with violence and coercive control. Why would abusive partners utilize stalking behaviors? Well, it can exert fear or exert control and instill fear. It can prevent the person that, their partner from leaving the relationship or from being able to fully move on from the relationship. It can also be used as retribution or punishment, kind of, for disobedience or for not doing or saying the right thing. It could also be used to isolate somebody because, as we all know, isolating the person that you are abusing is a huge tactic. And honestly, it's essential when you're looking at a power and control dynamic. You want that person to feel as though they are totally reliant on you. And this is another way that happens. The issue here is abusive partners who also stalk their partner, either during or after the relationships. It really does increase the danger factor tenfold. It's a huge safety risk. Abusive partners who stalk are more likely to verbally degrade, threaten, use weapons to attack, sexually assault, or even physically injure their target or people associated with their target compared to abusive partners who don't stalk. 41% of people that are stalked by a current intimate partner and 35% of people that are stalked by a former intimate partner have experienced real threats of harm compared to 24% of people that are stalked by not an intimate partner. It also increases the likelihood that the abusive partner, the stalking, will happen again and again, whether in this relationship or future ones. In fact, 1 out of every 3 intimate partner stalkers will reoffend. And not only that, but the stalking itself will typically last about double the amount of time that a usual stalking case. So again, every case is different, but on average, a stalking situation usually occurs roughly about 1 year before whatever reason, maybe they move on, maybe the target has moved away, maybe they have been able to totally separate ties, or if the police were able to get involved, whatever the reason. But intimate partner stalking actually typically lasts an average of 2 years. So double the amount of time just based on the fact that you had or have a relationship with that person. Not only all of that, go ahead, Chelsea, but stalking can be a huge precursor to murder. So 85% of attempted intimate partner murders were preceded by stalking. 76% of completed intimate partner murders were preceded by stalking. And 89% of femicide victims, sorry, the words are right here on my screen. I don't know why I had to move that. 89% of femicide victims had been physically assaulted and stalked by their murderers in the last year of their life. 54% of femicide victims reported stalking to the police before they were murdered by their stalker. Femicide is the intentional murder of women or girls simply based upon their gender. And obviously, 50% of all femicides are committed by male intimate partners or by male family members of the woman or girl. It is important to note, though, I know it does sound like, that it's like males are the stalkers, females are stalked. Listen, nobody is above being or below a criminal or a victim, right? There are most certainly female stalkers. There are most certainly males that are being stalked. It goes both ways. It's all across the board, actually, and that's just important to say.
It's important to say, and it's also important to remember that these are just based off of reported incidences. So we know as a whole, men are less likely to come forward as victims in across all types of victimizations, whether that's sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, any kind of crime. They are less likely to come forward and seek help, which means that we as a whole are really unable to pinpoint those statistics. So most of our statistics are based off of female survivors, just like most of our statistics are based off of a very certain age range, but there's almost no data about elder victims of stalking because they're not studied, they're not reported the same way. So while we speak in a very gendered tone, we really do recognize that men are victims too. So much so that Erica is actually presenting at a statewide conference in a few weeks about male victims because we see it, we recognize it, and we just don't want anybody to feel like we're ignoring this whole group of victims.
Yep, I did my own study. All right, so here's the thing, right? How can you help? You know, it's great that we go over all of this stuff, but really, what do you do with it now? If you get nothing else from this today, I hope that you understand it does not matter what somebody is disclosing to you, whether it's stalking, abuse, assault, safety, just that fear of whatever is going on. Please believe them. Take it seriously from the beginning. At the end of the day, we can have different thoughts or notions as to if somebody is overreacting or being dramatic or, just always wanting the attention, but it's not us that it's happening to, right? And it's not my job or my job as a human to judge you on that level, right? So believe them. It is perfectly okay if you get to that point that you have to say, I need to just back off for my own self-care, right? Like I can't be involved here right now. I need to take care of me. That's fine, right? But please believe them. Otherwise, document, let them know that they should be documenting all of the different things that they notice, and they can do that on their own or with the use of a log, and we will show an example of a log shortly as well. But you want to document, the date, the time, what happened, was anything preceding, or where were you at, anything like that, anything that might be beneficial, taking screenshots or pictures of items left, things of that nature. The more documentation you have, should you choose to go to the police, the better off you may be in that regard. Safety planning. Recognize that safety is not just the physical sense. However, make sure that we are addressing their safety in all terms, right? So whether it is the physical needs, emotional needs, maybe their best part of their safety plan is having somebody to talk to that they can just let it go and let it out and go from there. But make sure that is something that you do discuss with them. Lastly, connect them with resources, right? You cannot make somebody reach out. We're not fixers, we're not saviors, we're none of that. The only thing that you can do is let them know that if they want help, there are people, there are programs there that are here to help them. They are not alone. There are people that are experts or well sourced and well knowledged in this area that can help them walk through the process, walk through their options, and not force them one way or another. But there are people that will assist them when it's needed and when they feel as though they're at that point and ready. So this is just an example of a stalking incident and behavior log. This will also be shared within the resources that we share with everyone. But as you can see, it's got the date, the time, the description, as well as some other pieces. Again, the more detail, the more documentation, the better. It does not have to be on an official log, but again, just so you have an example, this is the kind of stuff that is most beneficial at a minimum. When we get into safety planning, this is more, well, this isn't just physical, this has some emotional stuff as well, but let's look at safety planning basics, right? Within the home, right? Simple things like changing locks, window, door alarms, cameras either inside or outside of the home. Are there motion lights or motion sensors just so you can be aware that, hey, something's out here? In northeastern Pennsylvania, I'll let you know it's very difficult because a light shines in my bedroom every night because the stinking deer are running amok, right? So, but maybe you live somewhere that they work better. Is there a safe exit plan, right? Or is there something that you can just work out ahead of time, right? We're like, okay, if you're here, where's the closest way to get out? If you're in a building, even, always knowing where that exit is and how you would get out of a room. Can you keep a to-go bag packed? And in some of our earlier webinars, we've talked about these and the different contents, clothes, cash, copies of important documents, things like that. Can we keep that to-go bag in a safe place that it can be accessed 24 hours a day? Always accessed, whether that's in your vehicle, inside your home, or maybe in a family or friend's home or garage or somewhere that you could always drive to. Informing neighbors, let's be honest here. If you are comfortable, right, your neighbors, listen, people are nosy. It's just human nature. So whether they can see you or if they can't see your home through the woods or field or whatever, people still know who comes and goes, right? So if you are comfortable letting them know, right, or letting someone know, not only can it give you a heads up that, hey, this person just is driving up and down the road or they're coming, but if something were to happen, you can go to their house as well, and they are already aware of this situation and can help you the best that they can from there. Online, changing passwords. Do not have all of your passwords be the same thing, right? Mix them up. Turning off location and making sure that you're checking your app permissions, your privacy settings on any and all electronic devices and checking them routinely. We can't always have our location turned off. We recognize that. So, definitely doing what you feel is best, but making sure that you are at least aware of where these things are set, like where the settings are, how to reach them, and how to change them. Different password protection features. They have the two-factor authentication and all these different types of things now. So utilize them if you can. Taking screenshots of any information, of any text or any contacts, things like that. Make sure that you check through your apps regularly, and as well be a careful as far as new devices and making sure again that it is I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat and I'm like, that is a good point. A to-go bag is like a doggy bag at a restaurant. But yeah, it's a go bag then in that case. So to go, same difference, but good point, Peter. But yeah, when you set up your new devices, making sure that, again, it is set up, who set it up, and if anyone else has access to that. When it comes to work or school, is there somebody that you trust that you can talk to, whether it be a boss, coworker, I don't know, a volunteer, a security guard, places that you are going often? Can you take different routes every now and again? So that way it's not the same every single day. And so somebody would not be able to find you as easily if they know you leave your house and you always go this way between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m. type thing. If it's possible and if needed, you could always ask about adjusting your hours. Simply never walking in and out of a building alone, especially after dark, making sure that you're walking through well-lit areas as well, but whether it's a security guard or just a coworker, just someone to be there. If you are wanting to get a protection from abuse order or a PFA, make sure that you have copies of that you obtain actual official copies from the courthouse. Usually, once you get them approved, when you are at the prothonotari's office picking them up, you can request additional copies. And I'm not aware of not, being told no, but make sure that you always have a copy on you. If you are in school or at work, you should always have a copy at those locations as well. Anywhere that you typically go, but definitely on you at all times. Listen, technology is great. And I know that should the police have to be involved, they have, communication system, but sometimes stuff doesn't work, or sometimes there's an issue. It's so much quicker. It's always recommended for you to be able to say, here, paper copy right here, right now, and it's official from the court. And lastly, if you are comfortable carrying some sort of protection. Now, granted, most people that read this think right away of some sort of firearm. That's not the only type of protection. Even something like pepper spray. The other one's a coup baton, right, Charles?
Sorry, yes, a Kubaton.
A
I was
coup
reading the
baton. I
Q&A.
always call it a kumbaya, and it's not that, but it's a coup baton. But that's like a keychain or something that you can use to defend yourself should you need it. Anything like that, some sort of protection that just makes you feel better. That's the goal here, to relieve some of that fear that this other person is instilling. Of course, how can we help? We are specific, and not just us, but other programs like ours are specifically trained to help victims in planning things like safety. A lot of us also have stalking kits. I know at our program we do, and within that comes various things: disposable cameras, Ring cameras or doorbells. We have some Kubatons. We have some, I know I'm forgetting stuff. We have some, the window or door alarms. And we continuously keep this stuff updated. Pepper spray, so that way, hey, look, if you need it, it's here, take it. Like, again, it's all free. We want you to feel safe, or as safe as you possibly can. Of course, in person or telephone or virtual counseling or group counseling, just knowing you're not alone is a huge thing. And if you are at that point where it's not safe to be home, we can help provide that for you. We can let someone else help get you into an emergency shelter. It's not like the Law and Order, old rickety prison style bunk beds in an old moldy gym, right? Like, let someone help you. Go ahead, Chess. I think it's frozen. Okay. Last thing, the resources. So back to the beginning when we were talking about every county having a program similar to ours. And we will make sure that on the resource list, these websites are listed as well. But PCADV is regarding the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And that is where you would look up all domestic violence programs by county. PCAR is for sexual assault agencies. Some programs are dual, like us, where we do both. Other counties have two separate, but we will make sure that you have that information to look at later. Spark is the website that is all things stalking. Huge resource. They have so much information, so many materials. That's where we are going to be sending you the incident log from and other stuff. So definitely them. And RAIN, being the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Very similar to like PCAR, but on the national level. So again, a great resource for you.
That's it, man.
That's it. And thank you, Taylor, for spelling Kubaton for me, because I wasn't even going to attempt that. I just learned how to say the word literally today. So yeah, so if anybody has any questions, we are here. You're welcome to type them in, or I know last time I think that they could come off of mute, I believe, right, Jamal? And
Right,
talk or
sure.
whatever they'd like.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
stop sharing my screen just because it's hard to access the Q&A and chat. So You're gonna see our faces big and large. Here we are.
So and I know afterwards, they will be like, once they have the recording of today's presentation available, I know they always send that out to review later, as well as there's a post eval that everybody has to do after. It's not accessible, I don't think, until 1:15 or 1:30, but you guys will get that information as well.
And a PDF of these slides will be going out too. So those will be included in your an email afterwards.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't even know why I'm here. It's such a
I
thing.
know. It only took us how many times before we did your job?
Thank you, ladies, for a very, very informative presentation. It was interesting, especially when you were going through the media portion, and Say Anything popped up in. I remember being younger and girls always like, I just want somebody to love me like John Cusack loved the girl and Say Everything and Say Anything. Like it's funny, like the way that you perceive things, and then when it's put into a different context, you go, yeah. But Twilight, I always knew was a little stalky. Like Edward Cullen was a little stalky, for sure.
Yeah, even like how many people have not thought about wanting to have like that running across the field into the other person's open arms in the rain, right? Like,
Exactly.
but taking it out of context, creepy.
Yeah. Like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah. And it's really high expectations for your partner. Like, come on, you're never going to meet them. That's a fallacy.
No, right.
That's just not real
Wow,
life,
Erica,
guys.
what a downer.
It's not. Real life takes over.
I do want to answer one of the questions in the Q&A. Somebody asked if they can contact Erica and I directly about providing trainings to their staff. That's a yes and no. So our program covers Wayne and Pike County, Pennsylvania. And while we can give like general information to anybody who would like it, absolutely. But I think finding your local program, they are going to have people like Erica and I who do these presentations and can get you a little more like detailed, localized information. So if we came to do a presentation, we might not know your PFA system very well. We might not know your like the program and what's offered to victims in your counties, where your local program will. So I always encourage people to go find their program on pcadv.org. Find your local program in whatever county you're in and see if they can provide it. And if not, use this as a fallback plan. We can absolutely do something like this.
And for people that live outside, I just saw someone said that they are in Texas. So if you are outside of the state, every state has a coalition similar to PCADV that you can honestly just Google, North Carolina state coalition against domestic violence or Oregon or whatever, pick your state and type it in, but then you'll be able to go to that state website and they'll have the same type of a program location finder. So, and anything specific or any Wayne or Pike County residents, if you don't have our contact information from other stuff, or if you have any specific questions or incidences that you would like to talk to us about, by all means, if you get in touch with Colleen or Jamal, they will most certainly forward that information to us and one of us can get in touch with you. We've done that as well.
Thank you. This is interesting to see all of the different things, the connections that people are making in the chat as far as movies and things. And it's taking me back to my childhood. Fatal Attraction, The Burning Bed. Mrs. Doubtfire is interesting.
Yeah.
Is a very interesting one because that one I never never would have made the connection or whatever, just
Yeah.
due to sort of the circumstances and things. But yeah, I can
And
definitely
yeah,
see.
definitely. Like we said, I mean, especially for Mrs. Doubtfire, that's why it's so important to say in that movie specifically, right? Like it was
Mhm.
not done with any malintent or any like harmful. It truly was coming, or at least it was presented to us as coming from a very good of just wanting to be as and as close to as possible because it was breaking him that he couldn't see them every day.
Mhm.
So it comes down so much to the intent. If you just look at that behavior, like, come on, you're dressing as a woman to be in your ex-wife's home all the time, you know. But the nature and the perceived nature upon the target. That's why it's so important, you know.
Yeah, it's very extreme once you go to start doing things of that nature. So,
And
um,
as adults, we can consume that media and we can see that, right?
right,
But
right.
as young children and like teens in those really sensitive years where you're just learning about
Mhm.
relationships and what your expectations are,
Mhm.
that's where it can get really harmful because you have no, I mean, like good relationships don't make for good entertainment, right? There's always some
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
drama, there's always some problem, and you learn
Mhm.
that that's just what relationships are supposed to be,
Mhm.
right? Like these are
Yeah.
romantic. I should expect that. And I think that's
Mhm.
why it's so important for us as adults to talk to our kids about the difference between what you see on TV and what you should
Mhm.
expect from a partner, right?
Yes,
And I can't believe I
100%.
forgot to mention it before, but for anybody that's still on here, if you have Amazon Prime, right,
Oh,
you need to go
yes.
on Amazon Prime and you need to search up Spy High. I don't think it was actually like a documentary movie. I think it was a limited series that had a couple
Yeah,
episodes, but
docuseries.
it was based upon, you know, it is normal for schools to be giving out, whether it's iPads, tablets, laptops, whatever, you know, to students nowadays. But about 10 or 15 years ago, this was just kind of starting. And it was actually based upon, it took place in Lower Merion School District, which is outside of Philadelphia. I want to say there by Westchester area. But basically, you know, the schools were they provided laptops to the students. And all of a sudden, the one day, the student got called into the office and accused of selling drugs. Um, and the bigger issue was, wait a minute, you have a screenshot of my son in his bedroom. Where did that come from? How did you get that? And lo and behold, you know, as it went on, they noticed, certain students would notice without being on their computer, all of a sudden that little green camera light came on. And this was a normal occurring thing. And by the end of it, I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of screenshots were were found on the school system servers with screenshots of students within their home, anywhere their laptop was, their bedroom, their living room, their bathroom. Look, kids are weird. I have a couple, so I know they take this stuff everywhere sometimes, and you're like, what are you doing? But you know, you think about like you change in your bedroom. You ever change with your laptop open, even if the screen's not on your phone, right? Do you ever carry that around? Like it was just such, if you haven't seen it yet, you got to look it up. It's free for Amazon Prime members, but it is such a good representation of all of this. And it really talks a lot about the things that Chelsea was saying with the tech facilitated um, and the spyware, 100% on point.
Mhm. That's crazy. I have to look at that one. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions coming through. So we want to thank Chelsea and Erica again for coming to present for us. As always, very informative. Just for you all who are talking about the link, I know it should be opened at 1:15. If not, it'll be open at 1:30. So if you are having issues with the evaluation link, try again at 1:30. And if you're still having issues, then please email info@pacarepartnership.org and we will get you all straightened out. Wanted to let you all know that we will be back with you with the next presentation on July 9th, starting at noon Eastern Time, with intergenerational trauma and AAPI families, understanding wellness, family dynamics, and help seeking. And we look forward to seeing you then. Until then, we hope you all stay safe and enjoy the warm weather that is coming. All right. It was a pleasure, everyone. Take care. We will see you on July 9th.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.